r/askReddit. What's your "it cannot possibly get worse" moment? That actually got worse? I had just spent 26 hours in labor and finally the doc decided it was time for an emergency C-section. My baby was born lifeless. Pneumothorax and a few other things. My baby and my husband were airlifted to another hospital, and I was sent down in ambulance. We spent a while in the NICU, and then were finally discharged home. After being home for a few days with a newborn, our hot water tank died. 2 days later we replaced it, and then I put my phone through the washing machine. Basically PPD. Replacing expensive hot water tank and phone. Everything happens in threes, I believe, and after that happened I've been good for a while. 1. Duck that doctor. 2. I'm so ducking sorry that happened. Things happen in threes, so. 3. Woke up in the morning. Checked my weight was several pounds heavier than the week prior despite sticking to a low caloric intake. Oof. Took a hit. Blood in my stool. This benign polyp was removed a month and a half later. Went to class. Was horribly unprepared for an exam I had. Ended up getting a 64% and escaping the class with a B. Did some homework. Got prepped for a coffee date I had at 3. Got ghosted. Went to work with my best friend. Found out we were both functionally getting replaced and that my promised raise wasn't coming. We were strung along for another 2 months with promises that we'd get another position after that, which didn't end up happening. On the drive home my friend got pulled over for doing 10 over on a surface street. Insurance was found to be expired. Had the cop searched us, he'd have found drug paraphernalia in the central console. We got home. Friend went to his room to drink himself silly because his day sucked as well. I had to take an online exam for a different class which I was unable to finish due to the school Wi-Fi being hit. The day my ex-husband left because we were getting divorced, I helped pack him and one of our dogs into his car. I went into work late, which had been pre-proved, to find out I was laid off. I had to pack my office that very day and was sent home. I was in college. I had procrastinated and had a 10-page philosophy paper to write in one night. While writing the paper I got a call from a friend at a different school. He told me there had been a horrible car accident where some students had been on a trip for an organization, and on the way back to school a semi-truck driver had fallen asleep and plowed into the van of students, killing almost everyone. He called because my best friend, since I was 4, was a part of that organization and he wasn't sure if she was in the van with everyone. No one could find her / get a hold of her. This went on for a while. I had to stop writing my paper because I couldn't focus on anything other than calling my best friend to find out if she was alive. Thankfully, she was. She was part of the organization, but didn't go on that particular trip. She was in the school's chapel praying. Hence why her phone was off. I tried getting back to the paper, but coming down from that stress was hard. I stayed up pretty much all night. Then my printer wouldn't work. I had to leave earlier to go to the local library. It was community college. I didn't live on campus and print my papers. I can't remember what happened, but I couldn't print them there. So I went to the computer lab on campus to print them. I had emailed the paper to my school account, but for some reason it didn't show up. My class was 3 hours long, and it took almost the entire time for the email to show up, so I could print it. I was so tired and stressed I just got up and read my report straight off the page and took a semi-passing grade. I was driving home and just relieved to be done with everything. And glad that my friend was alive. I remember that stupid song Bad Day by Daniel Powter coming on the radio. I basically had the thought this was a bad day. But it's over now, and I can go relax. Ha ha ha. Some background for this next part. One of our family dogs had found a nest of rabbits a month earlier and had killed a bunch of the babies. Except one. I had been raising the baby while also finishing the last month of that semester. Its eyes weren't even open, and I didn't know if it would make it, but I fed that little guy and kept him warm. I named him Everett. He opened his eyes on Easter Day. He imprinted on me. He wanted to be near me all the time. I even took him to classes if I needed to because he was on a feeding schedule. He would sneak out of his box, jump in my bed, and curl up in the crook of my neck. He fit in the palm of my hand. I came home that day ready to crash when I saw Everett's cage mangled on the floor. My family was supposed to watch him for me while I was at class. No one was around. I frantically started tearing the house apart. He was so small he could be anywhere. I knew our one dog was behind this mess. As I was searching, the dog walked up to me, opened his mouth, and set Everett's little body on the ground before me. I looked for signs of life, but I knew that Everett was dead. I held him and wept. I was devastated. Holy hit, I'm so sorry. Tell me you won a scratch-off lotto ticket or something to make up for that mess. Not yet, but I'm holding on to hope. I broke the back window on my truck, closing it too hard. Well hit. That's going to cost me. On my way to see if I could get lucky and score a cheap replacement from a junkyard. The water pump starts spraying coolant everywhere. Okay. Well, at least I'm already at the junkyard. They're cool enough to let me leave my truck there and walk to an auto parts store for new gaskets. I come back and fix the water pump. No window there. But I did buy a lightly used pump. I'm on my way home, all angry and pissed off, when the transmission on my truck explodes and takes out the driver shaft and differential with it. Probably the third worst 24 hours of my life so far. Third, what's the first two? The day I had to put down my dog is number 1. Number 2 is the day the company I worked for got sold, and I was told that if I wanted to keep my job I had to take a 30% pay cut. Husband was very ill when my mom died in January. I couldn't go up north for the funeral and leave him. Went to work point the day of her funeral. Came home to husband collapsed on the floor with kidney failure, pneumonia, and was already on the liver transplant list. He's collapsed in the yard in a cold rain. Took a few hours to crawl into the house. 2.5 weeks in ICU and got a transplant on Super Bowl Sunday. 4 months ago yesterday. Had 1 week to get transplanted or it was off to hospice. It's been rough, but he's recovering pretty well. Yeah, I'm in therapy now. I'm so sorry. That sounds terrifying, and I hope therapy is doing you well. This is kind of minor, but recent. I was watching my favorite team lose in the Champions League final and thinking, well, isn't this just great? Then my 2-month-old foster daughter projectile vomited all over me. I imagine the "it cannot possibly get worse" moment was you realizing you're a Spurs fan. Hey now. I'll not have you besmirch my team. But you aren't totally wrong. Because in that moment I'm realizing that this was their moment. With the players they have. It really feels like it had to happen now or never. This transfer window or the next they are gonna lose quite a few people. The team won't be the same. Who's your team? I picked up this girl at a bar. Turns out she had a boyfriend. Also turns out she's a dead fish in bed. Also turns out her idea of foreplay was tickling my peen. This got crazier by the sentence, lol. Her poor boyfriend. Could be her boyfriend was into that, so she thought all guys were. The week before finals I was leaving the dining hall when felt some stomach pain, thought indigestion, so took a nap in my dorm. Woke up in extreme pain and had to somehow find a ride to the hospital. When I got there they diagnosed me with appendicitis. I had it removed that night and left the next day with my parents to go home to recover and study for finals. I thought at least this is the worst part and I can just relax. 2 days later pain wasn't going away and I thought that was normal, but apparently I wasn't supposed to be in this much pain. Debated if I really needed to go back to the hospital all night, but then I decided better just go in case anything is wrong. My parents drive me there, and when we pull in, and they take my vitals, blood pressure and heart rate a little high, but nothing to worry about, the nurse said. I started to think I was overreacting until they took my temperature. 105.3 was my fever, and that is when your brain starts to fry. So they admit me and give me morphine for pain and give me an MRI. Apparently there was a hole in my intestine leaking out digestive material into my abdomen from my intestines, and my entire abdomen was filled with infected fluid. I was rushed into emergency surgery to remove as much as they could and had to spend a week there for observation. They said I had about a 40% chance of survival with that advanced of an infection. Luckily I'm here almost 2 years later fully healed. Holy hit. Glad you came out of that okay. Thanks. My dad sent me to Wushu school, these full-time martial arts / stunt schools in China, to be a stuntman like him. I was more interested in competition and trained for Sanda kickboxing since my teens. For 4 years I fought for 2 major teams in China, but got my ass handed to me at the 2007 Wushu World Championship. This was the closest I had ever gotten to a gold medal and was my best year so far. The doctors hospitalized me for a month and told my coach I couldn't train for 2 more. They knew I'd be out of practice when I came back. So my 2008 contract cut my pay by 25%. Most fighters in China are salaried and not paid per promotion. A month after I started training again, my left leg started killing me. A doctor told me I'd torn my ACL in the last fight and that, since healthcare in China sucks, my earlier doctor didn't even bother to tell me or didn't notice. My career was basically over, and if I kept kickboxing I wouldn't be able to walk in a year. I didn't tell my coach, but he found out by asking someone at the hospital and terminated my contract the next day. I asked for my annual pay guaranteed to me and he told me to sue him, which I knew I couldn't afford. Our team was also in bed with the local government and supported, probably owned, by the Beijing party secretary. So my chances were exactly 0. I tried finding a private sector job, but everyone knew my educational credentials were a joke. Pro athletes in China are given degrees by sports universities that basically are a sham. For a couple weeks I sat around and blew through savings before realizing I had to learn a foreign language and emigrate if I ever wanted a shot at life. That really sucks. Hope things got better for you and you got your shot at life. Had just graduated college and was doing laundry in my new apartment one evening, washing all my brand new khakis for work. All of a sudden I hear water running and see a flood of water coming from the laundry room. The drain hose from the washer hadn't been properly secured and popped loose, draining the washer's water all over the floor. I grabbed every towel, blanket, sweatshirt I had and was frantically trying to sop up the water. I had to keep running to the tub to wring them out, throw them in the dryer to try and keep up with all the water before it began to drip into the apartment below. I spent like 3 hours doing this and was exhausted as hell. I finally remember about the khakis I need to transfer to the dryer, and they're all streaked with black. I had left my brand new graduation gift coach wallet in one of the pairs of pants and the dye had bled all over all of my brand new work pants. So I had to figure out how to better secure the washer drain hose and rewash the pants, hoping the dye would come out. Thankfully it did. I then had to wait up so I could get them into the dryer, so I had pants to wear to work the next day. And I had to figure out what to do with my waterlogged, brand new expensive wallet. It was soaked through, so I had to pull out all the cards, ID, etc. and then try to blot it dry best I could without ruining it. I eventually took it to a Coach store where they rubbed it with conditioning lotion to keep it from cracking. So after all the flood cleanup and laundry, I finally got to bed at like 2 AM. When I wake up, it's after 11 AM. I'm supposed to be at work at 9 AM. And it's now almost lunchtime. My alarm clock was blinking, meaning that the power had gone off at some point overnight and deactivated the alarm. With all the stress and activity the night before, I soundly slept well beyond when I was supposed to get up. So I had to call my manager of a job I'd been full-time at for all of 2 weeks and explain where I was and how I'd be in 3+ hours late. Fortunately, I had been an intern there and part-time my senior year, so I did have a year track record with the company under my belt. But that wasn't how I imagined using my first ever PTO hours earned. Geez, that sucks. I feel so sorry for you. Forgive me for laughing at the beginning. It sounded so chaotic, haha. Hope it won't happen again. That was 20 years ago this week, and hasn't happened again. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.